Good morning, dear Stitchers. It's Judy Whitman with JBW Designs. I was getting ready to start filming this video and I had a little catastrophe here in my office. If I hold up my arms and I'm bleeding somehow, I went to close the blinds on the other window in the other dormer, and not only did the blinds fall down, but then the valance fell down and then the tray. It's a wonder I'm in one piece. So on that side of the room, there's a bit of a disaster. But anyhow, I want to welcome you to my channel. It is about cross stitch, and I can't thank you enough for subscribing. I made it to 2,000 subscribers in December, which to me was just a major accomplishment, and I just feel so, what can I say? Just thankful and grateful for all of those of you who take time to watch, because as I say each time, you have so many choices. So I have a lot to tell you about this video. I haven't recorded in a couple weeks, and I'm going to title it A Trip of a Lifetime, because I want to tell you about something that I did over Christmas. And then also I'm going to do a review of everything I designed in 2021. And that was a good thing for me to look back and see kind of what I've accomplished and how many models were stitched. So thank you, settle in, get some stitching, and we'll start chatting with one another. And I look forward to your comments too. So first of all, I hinted in the last video that I was possibly going on a trip. And as you can imagine, with COVID, everything was up in the air, actually in almost to the last minute, because we weren't sure if all of us would test negative before we left, and also if we were going to London, believe it or not, if the London or England was going to close down their visitors. So it was touch and go, but we made it, and I want to tell you how it came about, because it was really such a wonderful time. My daughter called me about 6-7 months ago and said, Mom, she and my son-in-law Craig and my grandson Liam were going to England, and they wanted to know if I wanted to go with them at Christmas time. And how could I resist? But don't forget, I have a husband here at home, and I have a son and daughter-in-law and grandchildren who live here. And so the thought of, I've never done this before, of leaving half my family was quite daunting. So I checked in with each one of them, talked to my husband first and told him about this opportunity. And the reason that he was not able to go is that physically he could not have done it. We were walking maybe 15,000, 17,000 steps a day. He's had 2 knee surgeries and a back surgery, and it would have just been grueling for him to do. So he said to me, I think you should go. I think you don't want to miss this opportunity, and I'll be fine. And so then I talked to my son and his family, and they all pretty much said the same thing. Go ahead. You don't want to miss this at all. So I'm going to get a quick drink of water. I'm losing my voice. So we left on December 21st and flew into Heathrow, and we just did not stop for a moment during the next during the time that we were there. My daughter had planned, and her husband had planned the whole trip, and that was kind of a treat, because I could sit back and not worry, because they had done all the ticketing, etc. So the first day that we were there, and I'm just going to give you highlights. I don't want to bore you to death with this trip, but I tried to pull out things that I thought as stitchers and artists that you would be interested in. So the first day when we got there, we actually went our separate ways. They went to Westminster Abbey for a tour, and I wanted to go to the V&A, Victoria and Albert Museum. I had been there before many, 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 many years ago, and I just didn't want to miss it. So we just set off on our own, and I was a little bit disappointed, I will tell you, in the Victoria and Albert, and probably should have done more research ahead of time, because what I remember before was a fabulous sampler display. This time, when I got there, I talked to several of the guides and people that were standing around and said, I'm trying to find the section on my guidebook of where the embroideries and samplers are. And they were quite, all I can say is befuddled by that question, and pretty much said, oh, just go over there in the British section. So I did that, and I did come across some interesting pieces of needlework, but certainly not the samplers that I was hoping to see. But that's okay. The museum is fabulous, and I spent a lot of time walking in it, of course. So I wanted to show you in my very high-tech way some of the things that I saw that I thought you'd be interested in. There was a display of pincushions and embroidered purses. And I actually photographed these signs that were next to this. And I want to tell you a little bit about it because I thought the history was so interesting. So enormous, first of all, about the pincushion. This is the pincushion right here. It's from, I believe, 1600s. And the design on it, of course, is just fabulous. So enormous, I'm going to read to you what it said because I thought this was fascinating. Enormous quantities of pins were used for the fastening of clothing. Elizabeth I was supplied with 24,000 pins, and they spelled it P-Y-N-N-E-S, of diverse sorts, just for her coronation. And then the pins secured a petticoat, and they went on to describe how they were used. Several dozen might be used for one ensemble. The pins were found in written documents dated between 1620 and 1635. And here were some examples of the brass pins. And then also in this picture are bags, little small embroidered bags. Oh, here's another pincushion right up there. So the bags were also so interesting because that was a common dress accessory, just like we carry purses today, nothing that elaborate. And this was such an interesting fact. So before regular bathing, body odors were masked with sweet bags containing perfumed powder or dried herbs. The bags also held mirrors or sewing equipment. And so that was fun to see that, just a little bit of needlework that I was able to see. The other thing that I was able to see, and I have a funny story to tell you, sometimes, we do things and think, oh my gosh, where was our head? So one of the things I was hoping when I got to the Victoria and Albert is that I would visit their bookstore because I remember them having tons of books on embroidery and samplers, and I was planning on buying some. Well, they had actually nothing that I could purchase. So when I got home, I thought, I'm going to go online and I'm going to see if the Victoria and Albert actually has a book, and they do, of samplers. So I ordered it just this last week, and guess what I found in my bookcase just a few days ago? The very book that I ordered. So I may be giving something very nice away in the next time that we meet. But I wanted to show you, actually, in this book was pictured the one sampler that I did see. It is from 1668, and it was this long, narrow sampler, which was fabulous. But it was so far back in the case, and it was really difficult to see. Actually seeing it in my book, it is much more clear than when I was actually there in person. So that was one of my adventures. Oh gosh, there's so many on my list here. We also had a chance to go to the Royal Albert Hall one night for a Christmas concert, which was just amazing. It is beautiful. The Royal Orchestra and choirs were playing, so that was wonderful. And then probably something that we did that I never in my life ever thought I would have a chance to do was we went to Westminster Cathedral for the Christmas Eve service. And here is a picture of the choir down in the chancel. There were actually very few choir members there. And I think that COVID and the numbers in England certainly had an impact. And also, amazingly, there were not that many people there at the service, which is probably why my daughter ordered tickets ahead of time, why we were able to get in. But it was, I still think about it and I think, was I really there? Have you ever had moments like that where you can't believe you're in a place that is so special? And it was, the music was amazing. The sermons, of course, were amazing. So it truly was, what can I say? Just wonderful. The other thing that we did many historical things, because I want to tell you about my grandson Liam, who just turned 18 while we were there. He loves history, and he's graduating from high school this year, and he wants to be a history professor. So this trip was perfect for him. We went to they went to the British Museum. I'll tell you in a bit why I wasn't able to go. We went to the Tower of London and took a tour of that, St. Paul's Cathedral. I'm trying to think of where else we went. I do have a Tower of London story to tell you that we all kind of giggle about. So we first walked in and we were just getting our audio tour guides, and a very elderly woman was standing right near us, and she looked quite unique, actually. And we laughed about it later. So she had on a hat that looked like she had just found a raccoon in the woods and skinned it, and she had it all over her head like this, and very unusual clothing, and 3 teeth. And she started visiting with us, and she said she was Celtic, that she was from Scotland, Ireland, and Wales. And she started asking us if we had been there before. And when we answered no, she said, well, why not? I said, well, we want to go, but we just haven't had a chance yet. But she said to us, well, I'm a member here at the tower. And then we kind of laughed later. We thought, maybe she lives in the tower. She looked like she could have been someone who lived there. But she was, I didn't get a picture of her, but she was quite a unique character. So one of the other highlights was we went to the Churchill War Museum. And I'm always trying to look at things from an artist's point of view. And that, incidentally, that museum was fabulous. It was probably at the top of our list of our top 3 things that we liked. But one of the things that I discovered, which I think I vaguely knew in the past, is that Churchill loved to paint. And so they had one display, and this is going to be a little hard to see, of his smock and several of his paintings. And they also had a book of all the paintings that he had done. He's done over 550. He had done 550 paintings. And if you look through this book, his paintings were fabulous, really museum quality. I was so enamored with seeing those paintings. I just thought it was such an interesting aspect of a man who I knew a lot about, but didn't realize that he was that talented. So one of the other highlights of our trip was that the decorations on the stores and the windows were just wonderful. And I love to photograph things like that. And I'm going to put some photographs of the trip on my Friends of JBW Designs page, because I thought that would be more appropriate. But this was one of the things that I saw. This is actually a paper construction that was in one of the windows. Isn't that just fascinating? I thought it was beautiful. And then the last thing I'm going to tell you about is, I'll give you a quick little update. So about 5 or 6 days into the trip, I started to get a sore throat, runny nose, and I was very worried about getting COVID. And so we went to the drugstore and got a self-test, and I did that at home. And in the hotel, I actually tested positive for COVID. So that really changed a couple days of our trip. I had to isolate for a few days in the hotel room, and my daughter and son-in-law and Liam went on their way to do other things, which was the right thing to do. So I ended up taking 2 at-home tests, both positive, and then my son-in-law said, why don't you go get a PCR, which is more definitive. And so I did that, and actually it was negative, so I got to go out one last day before we left, which was great. And so I really thought long and hard about what I wanted to do on my last day in London. I thought, you have to get out. I'd been in the room stitching and watching BBC for several days, which was interesting and fun. So I went to the National Museum. And if you ever get a chance to go, oh my goodness, what a fabulous building. So one of the things that I found, actually I posted this on Instagram, that was just fascinating, was I found a painting of a woman, Madame Pompadour, in fact, who is sitting at an embroidery frame, and she's actually doing something called tambour work. And if this picture was clearer, I'll post it again, you can see that she's actually holding almost like a little, it looks like a long wooden tool in her hand, and that was used to do beading work. The other thing that was so charming, there were several things about this picture. One is that the description described just what we do today. She used that tambour frame to stretch her fabric to get it taut to work on, which is what we do today with our frames and Q-snaps. The other thing that was quite charming is this is actually a little dog. Her little dog is up there with his paws on the frame. And when I posted it, so many of the people who saw it said, oh, that's just, all right, we don't sit at home in ball gowns and stitch. We're in our jammies and robes and slippers. But that's the funny part. But sometimes we do have our pets at our side. So that was another highlight of the trip. And then the last thing I'm going to show you is a picture of the four of us. We were at Greenwich at the Meridian line, and we got someone to take a picture of all of us. So the funny thing about being in London in the wintertime is it rained every day we were there. And my hair, I do not have a glorious mane of hair. And as soon as it sees a raindrop, it's like, look, like that. So I kind of looked like a drowned animal the whole time I was there, and finally decided I had a hat, and that maybe the hat would cure all. So I have to tell you quickly about my last adventure. So I've been showing you for some time, let me move my desk here, a sampler that I'm going to publish in my next book of red samplers, and it's the Monica Marshall sampler. If you go back, or if you've been with me for a while, you know that I've been talking about it quite a bit. And the research on her has been so fascinating because she was from Cornwall. So I decided on my last day in the afternoon that I was going to try to find Hanover Square in London, because she actually lived at that square in 1936. So I put the address in my phone, and I looked at how far away it was from the museum, and I thought, well, I can walk there. So I started off. Now, I have told you before that I have zero sense of direction. And so I'm walking and walking, I don't know, I walked 20, 25 minutes or so. And I wasn't even sure I was going in the right direction, of course. I'm following my phone thinking I am. I finally spotted two policemen, and they looked at the map and they said, actually, no, you're going in the wrong direction. Surprise, surprise. So one of the policemen said, if I were you, I think I'd get a cab. That's a long ways away. So I did. I got a cab. I thought it was worth it. And I got to Hanover Square. And it was an interesting experience because some of the buildings on the square have been replaced with newer office buildings. But on two sides of the square, the old buildings that were there, that have been there for hundreds of years, were still standing. And I just kind of took it all in. I tried to imagine Monica living on that square with her husband, who was a major in the Army at that time, and her two children. And it was really special. I just felt like it was something I had to do to add to the research. So, all right, enough of England. I was so lucky, I know that I got a chance to go. So I want to start in with cross stitch, which is why you're here. So I usually release new products. I'm going to grab a couple things here 3 times a year, if all goes well. So I release before the market, which is usually in March, and I usually do 5 or 6 releases, and then I try to release again in June, and then in September for Christmas time. So first, I'm going to kind of go in order of last year's releases. So the very first thing that I want to show you, and I'll tell you what inspired it, is that I have a small collection of chintz-ware, which is china, which in this case, this pattern is actually, trying to think what it's called, petite, let's see, can I read it here? Petit point, actually, that's what it is. And I love the designs on that. So I use the china as inspiration to design this chintz alphabet. So I was just looking at the china, taking in the colors, and then charting things that I thought would appear on that piece. And that design and that book look like this. And I actually have another piece to show you. This was stitched on a 32 Belfast antique white. Here's a close-up of the picture on the inside, and of course the chart. And let me check on the fibers here. Yes, I use quite a, excuse me, quite a variety. I have Classic Color Works, Weeks Dye Works, and I always give DMC equivalents. So that was one that came out. It would have come out in February. I also did, and you're going to see a lot of round designs in the past year because I did a series of summer, fall, winter, spring. So the first one that came out was winter, and on the inside of that, I charted a little snowflake. Oh, there's a little note in here that says, I hadn't seen that before, that there's a small chip on the inside of the box. I'll have to repair that. So this is what this looks like, winter in the round. And the booklet that went with that looks like this. It has a picture of the inside snowflake on the back. And that I stitch all my designs over 2 and over 1. And let's see, what did I use? I used a Blue Whisper 32 count Belfast for the one design that's over 2. And the over 1 design, let's see if it's pictured. Yes, I don't think I pulled the model out. I mounted it on a wooden snowflake, and that was stitched on a 28 count linen, which is usually what I do my over 1s on. So then also that one of the releases that came out at that time was part of a series that's called Seaside 7. And Seaside series is all flamingos and crabs and anything that you can think that goes with the seaside theme. So this time I did a beach umbrella, hard to say, and a little sailboat. And this is what the models look like of those 2 designs. Let me see if I can show you. And these were finished by my professional finisher. I love the rickrack on this one, and then she did just a twisted cording on this one. And let's check out the fabric on this. So I used Blue Whisper again for the fabric on this design, and then I also stitched them over 1 on a little, actually, oops, a little ribbon needs to be tied. This was just a piece that I had in my stash of a very pale blue, 2-tone blue striped ribbon. So that's Seaside 7. I haven't figured out actually how many models I stitched. I do stitch all my own models because that's part of the fun of it, right? It's designing it and stitching it. So the next design that I want to show you is called Love in the Round. And I mounted this actually on a jar that I found at Hobby Lobby last Valentine's Day. And so I haven't been in there in a while to see if they're carrying this jar again, but it's very possible that they are. So I just made a lid for the jar with the Love in the Round design. And then for the over 1, I made a tiny little lid to go in a jar just with some little Easter grass. And that pattern looks like this. It was stitched on a 32 count Belfast in baby pink was the color. And then the over 1 was just stitched on white. So here are some pictures of what the models look like. I have quite a pile here. If I had claustrophobia, I would be in trouble because I'm surrounded by stuff. So the other leaflet that I released at that time was something that you've seen now quite often over this past year. I released the 3rd edition of the Christmas ornaments. And in these booklets, which are spiral bound, are 20 different charts for 20 different ornaments that I have designed over the years. And there are quite a few Flosstubers who've been mentioning them lately because they're so fast and easy to stitch. So we're past Christmas now, but who knows, you might be interested in that going forward. And then the last thing I released at the last show was a little kit, and this is based on that first design that I showed you, the chintz alphabet, and it was called a little chintz sewing set. And inside were the fibers that were used for the cording. For the scissor fob, I included the backing fabric that was used on the pillow. I'll show you that in a second. And also the rickrack that was used to finish the edges. And of course the chart is in there. And so this is a very small pillow. You could put it in a bowl or on a display. And that's what the little chintz sewing kit looks like. And incidentally, these items are all still available. Nothing is out of print because they're all quite new. So if you're interested in any of them, please contact your local shop. I'm sure they'd be glad to order. And this was the little scissor fob that went with the chintz sewing kit. Pink on the back. So that was the first set of releases. Now we're moving on to June releases. So in June, let me stretch over here and grab a couple things and try not to make too much racket here. So in June, I continued with the round designs, and I did a spring round, and this was just mounted on a wooden piece, again, that I found at Hobby Lobby. When I go there, I'm always looking for something, even if it has a lettering in the center, that I could use to mount a round piece in the middle. And so that was what I chose for the spring in the round. And let's see, let me show you what that booklet looked like. So that looked like that, and let's see what it was stitched on. It was stitched on antique Belfast white, antique white Belfast. So let's get that out of the way. It's hard to set those things down quietly. Let's see, is this, yeah, this, here it is. Here's the spring done over one. And you know, each time I do one of these rounds, I'm picking out motifs that are part of what you would think of as spring. So I have a watering can and a lamb and a rabbit and an umbrella and a basket, and hearts and a bird and flowers. So all of those motifs are in that design. They're really fun to do. I want to, sometime again, kind of show you the process of my design. Someone said to me that was why they liked watching my videos, because they were curious about how a design evolves. And I will try to show you that perhaps with my next releases, which will come out in 6 weeks or so, and show you how a design comes about. So this one I pictured, actually, it's called Love. And this I thought could be used as a gift for a bride or someone who had just gotten engaged, or as an anniversary gift. And I did 2 models of that. I did 1 over 1. And if you can see in the background, let's see, it's easier to see on the over 2 model. Let me show you that one. I did a little tiny cross stitch in pearl cotton so that it looks like dotted Swiss. And it makes a nice background for the lettering. And then I mounted this just on 2 boards, of course. Mounted one with fabric and put the rickrack underneath it, and then mounted the second one for the backing. So those are not too hard to finish. And did I show you the booklet? I think I did. And it is stitched on a Belfast 32 also. So those would be good for this coming Valentine's Day. So another design that came out at that same time, and it was part of the, let's see, did I pull the right one? Yes, I did. Part of the round series, the seasonal rounds, is that I did a summer in the round, and I put it in a jar with shells. And actually, somebody wrote to me on my friend's page and said she had done this for her daughter and gave it to her for Christmas. So I was quite tickled with that. And on this design, on the summer design, there is a whale and a lighthouse and a sailboat, let's see, a bicycle, a little duck and fish and a palm tree. So there are a lot of things that I tried to fit into that design. And so I did it over 2, and again, I did it over 1. And the booklet for that looks like this, and Belfast linen, antique white. You can see I like that. So then, let's see, what else did I release at that time? I think I did. I'm trying to remember here. I'm forgetting the order of things, but you know what? You don't care. You just want to see all the things that I released, right? So the last one, a round series, nope, there were 2 more. I did a Halloween in the round, which was quite fun. Oh, you know what? I pulled the wrong one. I should have pulled fall in the round. I pulled the wrong one. Oh well, we will just pass this by and I can tell you that I did it, and it was part of that seasonal series. Whoops, just a little mistake there. So now moving on to the rest of the releases for last year. Many of you know that I have a sing a song series, and they are all either Christmas songs or hymns. And the one that I released this year was I Heard the Bells on Christmas Day. And these are fun to stitch. They've been very popular. I've been getting a lot of orders for these lately. And this too was stitched on an antique white Belfast, although the original designs in this series were actually stitched on, I think, an ecru linen. So I kind of changed. It doesn't matter. Choose the fabric that you love. I did not stitch this over 1. This is stitched over 2, and you can see it's pretty small. The design is only, what, about 3.5, 4 inches tall. So that was another release from this past year. And then I also did something called Candy Cane Pockets, which were 2 designs, one with ice skates and one with just a little gingerbread boy. And I pictured these actually as ornaments on the tree. You could put a little gift card in there, or as I did, just a few little plastic candy canes. And those were fun to do. Let me show you what the booklet looks like. So this was worked on a 32 count opalescent linen, and if you haven't tried that yet, it's a really pretty linen. It has a little, just as it says, a thread running through it that has a little shine to it. So it's wonderful for Christmas projects. So let's move on to the very last items from last year. So I did an alphabet in the round, and this was actually a suggestion of one of my shop owners. Anne from Dying to Stitch suggested it, which I thought was great. I thought it would be perfect for those of us who love samplers. So I figured out how to kind of artfully, hopefully, arrange all the letters of an alphabet in this design, and then for the inside of the box, I did a little ABC, just because it looks pretty on the inside. So these wooden boxes, incidentally, come from Hobby Lobby. They're unpainted, and so I just spray paint them. This is kind of a chalk paint, I believe, that I've used. I love the shade of it. It's kind of a nice soft ecru. And then I usually find a little piece of fabric to line the box with, and it just makes such a nice gift. So I did a couple of versions of that. I did the one in pink, and then I did one in red, and I just used an initial on the inside of the box. And again, the lining on the box was to match the color of the thread that was used. Let me look at that. So I used a cream 32 count Belfast linen for one of them. I used a 40 count Legacy linen for another one, and a 28 Cashel for in cream for the one I'm going to show you over 1. So this you've seen before. It's the little ornament. It's the very same design, but instead of a light color in the background, I used a green. And a lot of people, I've seen pictures of people who have instead of doing all of the letters in red, they chose to do their last initial in another color, and it was quite striking. And all of those are pictured in this booklet, which is Alphabet in the Round. And then the last set of items, oh, there, no, I have more hidden on the other side. I thought something was missing. It was. All right, I hope this is not too long for you. I always worry about that. All right, so let me grab everything. So I'm going to show you a set that is called Christmas Smalls. And it is 5 different designs. I'm going to show you the models. And several of these designs would actually make darling Valentine smalls. So I hope you'll kind of expand your thought process. Let's see if I can find another picture. Here's another picture of the other two that aren't, the others that aren't pictured on the cover. So this is quite a long book, as you can see. It's a 4-fold because I have finishing directions for each piece. So these are the pieces that I did. I did a little flat, but I put a pocket in the back so you could put a little pair of scissors in there. So this tiny little pair of scissors can fit in the pocket. And this is the little scissor fob that goes with it. Now this design, I think, I'm going to take it apart and show you up close, could be a small for Valentine's Day because it's just a tiny little wreath. And you could change the colors of the ribbon, etc., if you wanted to make it another pinkish color. I also did a little pin keep, and this is just a bouquet of flowers. And again, that would be darling as a Valentine small. I also did a little needle book, and this has a basket of flowers, and you can see the finishing on the inside of that. This is just 2 discs, excuse me, that are covered with fabric. And then you tie the little discs together and you can store your needles in there. And then the last one that I did was a strawberry. And again, this could be a small for Valentine's Day because it doesn't scream Christmas to me. It just has kind of spring colors. And as they say, you could alter it if you wanted to. So those are the 5 designs that were in Christmas Smalls. All right, looking over here, this is what I'm missing. I'm missing this whole table. So one of the things, let me see, where did I put it? Here it is. So one of the things that I released in January last year was a collection of antique red samplers. And this is packaged in a little plastic bag. And I can show you just a portion. So each chart, I'm going to just quickly show you like that, is a separate page, and on the bottom I have written the history that I was able to find on this sampler and the description of the sampler. So in this booklet, I'll show you up close, were 5 antique samplers that were in my collection. And I will show you 2 of them. So this is one of them. This is the one I call the Greek key because of the border at the top. And let me set this aside here. And then another one that was in this booklet, which I found quite fascinating because the stitching was so tiny, was this little one. I'm trying to think, what did I call that little guy? Let me look here in my booklet. I called this the star sampler because it had the star at the bottom. And it was just quite incredible because the linen and the weave is so tight. So those were, you can see now, 2 of the samplers that were in that collection. And I'm working on the second collection of those books that will be released soon. So what else came out? All right, there are a few more. Aha. So I also did, at the end of last year, a Christmas design that I call Be Merry. There's a one that is preceded this called Be Joyful. This is what it looked like. And it was finished in 2 ways. It was finished as a drum, and I love the way that turned out. And I found this little antique strawberry at an antique mall, and it just seemed like the perfect finishing touch for the drum. And then the other model of that, and these are both done, this one was done over 1. I take that back. and the other model, the drum model, was done over 2, and I showed you, let's see what that looked like here. And then I found these models when I was on my search, and then when I went to lay everything out, they have disappeared. So I have so many models downstairs, and I went to find them and I couldn't. So I'll just tell you about them. I did a couple of wooden tags that were easy ornaments to do with a little robin and a little cardinal. And those models are missing in action. All right, so just a few more. I did one called Dashing Through the Snow. This had several models with it. I did one of them, let's see, the blue one was done on a 40 count legacy linen over 2 with 1 ply, and that was stitched in the pale blue, finished with cording on the edges. I'll show you the book in a minute. And then this second one was stitched on a petty point linen that has a polka dot in the background, and that was stitched in red. And I think I did a third model of it too. I'll have to look in the book to remind myself. Yes, I did. I stitched it on a red linen over 1 with white thread. I'd forgotten about that model. So that was Dashing Through the Snow. As I say, those were stitched on a variety of linens. That was a fun one to do. So we're all set. You've seen the whole shebang, the whole number of releases from last year. I'm surrounded by them. They were great to do, very well received. So I am so grateful to all of you. So what am I working on now? Actually, I'm getting ready for the next show. So I'm not showing anything yet. I've finished 4 pieces. Actually, I'm still stitching another model. I'm hoping to have a kit for that market. And of course, the red sampler book will come out. I want to do some giveaways today to thank you for subscribing, to thank you for all your comments. I just love your comments. So I do have a question for you. I have announced giveaways before, and some people have contacted me through messaging. And for some reason, I am losing those messages. And I'm not sure why, but I want to encourage you not to do that. Not to message me through Instagram or other ways, but please email me. That's the best and most reliable source for me. So my email is judy@jbwdesigns.com. And I want to know, did I miss anyone? I just have a feeling that I gave out names for prizes and you contacted me and somehow I missed you. So if that's the case, please email me and let me know. So I've got a list here of the 5 people who I chose for winners from the last video's comments. And I'm going to leave the prizes wide open. So these 5 ladies get to choose what they want from any of my releases from last year. You can choose one title. So my first winner is Connie Steele, and this was done by a random number generator. My second winner is B. Clark. My third is Linda Huson, Huson. My fourth one is, I'm going to spell it for you, N-A-Z, Mon, M-O-N. I think I have that right. And then the fifth one is Linda Whitley. So if you will contact me, and I will write a note in the last video to let you know that you've won, but if you will contact me, that will be great. So let's see, the only other news I have to tell you is that we still, as a family, have not celebrated our Christmas together. So we're hoping to do that this Sunday to all gather. And it's a little late, but it will be fun. I can't wait to see everybody. And I also want to acknowledge, and I will do that in my comments below my video, all of the Flosstubers who have been mentioning my products. I'm just stunned at the number of orders I'm getting these days. I do have a shopping cart on my website of older designs, and it's been wonderful. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I so appreciate you all. So let me know if you have any questions for me. Questions about what I'm working on, questions about how I design, etc., etc. I'd love to answer them. So see you soon, probably in about 2 weeks, and take care and be kind to one another. Bye-bye.